Welcome to a special episode of Florida Focus, a college football podcast. My name is Brandon. I'm a lifetime Seminole fan.
I'm Chris. I'm a lifetime Gator fan.
And we are joined by a special guest, Jared, who's a Patreon on the show and a friend that introduced Chris and I some years ago. Jared, thank you as always for making the time for us.
Absolutely, guys. Early signing day once again, teeing it up once again. Definitely excited to dive in and look at the future for these Florida programs.
Yes, well, thank you. And that's why we have you on, because that is your emphasis, and that's what we rely on you for. So you just go ahead and dive right in, Jared. We'll have you start off with the Florida Gators. How did they fare early signing day, and what can we expect in the next month or two?
Yeah, early signing day for the Florida Gators definitely comes as really non-eventful, which is a good thing in recruiting. No signing day surprises. They sent out all their letter intents. All the letter intents they sent out, they got them all back. So everyone stayed committed to the class. Everyone stayed in the class, which is always huge when you when you're recruiting guys like Jason Marshall or Tyreek Sapp, who they easily could have flipped to a Miami or to an Alabama. So really nice for them to hold on to those 22 commits there after early signing day. And obviously really just anchored and topped by Jason Marshall, the 5-star cornerback out of Miami Palmetto. So really exciting for the Florida Gators as they jump into this really new beginning of 2021.
Yeah, Jared, who do you think? Obviously Marshall with the 5-star, he's going to stick out. I mean, the question that everyone's going to ask, and I ask every year, of these guys, who do you think we're going to see first next year?
Yeah, so Florida signed a lot of guys who are really needs at big positions. So I'll talk a little bit about the guy. The guy I think that you're going to see first and early is a guy named DeJuan Black. Now he actually committed to Florida in the 2019 class, didn't quite have the grades. He actually I believe he's the commit, and I could be wrong, but I believe he's the commit that actually set out his last year of high school to work on his grades. And he worked hard. He got caught up, but still not quite enough. So he ended up going to Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College there, played this, past season, was a number 1 ranked player in all of JUCO coming out. He was a 4-star out of high school. He's going to be the number 1 ranked player out of JUCO. And I believe Florida's looking at him as outside linebacker, but he did play safety in JUCO. He goes about 6'3", 225, 230 pounds, and is just a phenomenal athlete. I think you'll see him early and often for the Florida Gators, and probably not just on special teams. He's a guy that's played the next level ball, and I think he knows what the expectation is. Also a guy that really, really, really wanted to be a Gator. His entire social media, Twitter feed, everything, Instagram, all year long was about how he was coming back to Gainesville. Hats off on the great work by DeJuan there, the hard work to get back into the place where he always wanted to be. So I think he's going to be not only a prospect you see early, but a prospect that Gator fans are going to fall in love with, and he's going to be number 1 in a lot of people's hearts, just given the road he took to get there.
Yeah. So thank you. So yeah, I agree. Like a lot of people, once they hear his story, are really going to love his story, and Gator fans are really going to fall in love with him once they understand. Because I vaguely remember his story, and obviously you do too. When they see his journey, I think maybe it's a little unfair, but kind of similar to Kyle Trask, where this guy who's just this long journey, and then all of a sudden he's right, starting for the Gators at quarterback. I could see if things pan out for him being a guy with the same deal, where just everything, he would start off behind the 8 ball and could potentially be a star for the Gators.
Yeah, I think just to echo that sentiment. I mean, he's put in the legwork, and he's playing safety. If you ever get a chance to check out his film, I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete, very rangy. He's able to cover the slot. He plays over top. He's a missile. He can bring it up to the line of scrimmage. He can hit, cover sideline to sideline. And I think he's a guy that maybe not a lot of folks are talking about just with the other names in the class, but a guy that's going to, he's going to find the field very early.
Yeah, I think having that JUCO experience is going to help him. Just having some experience is going to help them. Now, you and I, and Brandon knows this too, but you and I, especially when we talk, if you watch any Gator game, one of the biggest weaknesses on defense is safety. Now, we got some safeties in this class. Tell me about them, and hopefully tell me that the future is a little bit brighter in the backfield for the Gators.
future's really bright for the Gators there in the secondary with what they've done in the last class and with bringing in guys like Rashard Torrance and Trevez Johnson, a lot of names Florida fans saw this year. So as freshmen, really playing before they probably should have played, but very athletic. And so really just Florida really backed that up this year with some big names at the safety position. Really the number one ranked safety that we're bringing in, or the Florida Gators are bringing in, Corey Collier. They're from Miami Palmetto, teammate of Jason Marshall, the 5-star. He's 6'2". He only weighs about 170 pounds. He's going to need to get with Nick Savage and put on that weight that we've seen Savage just stack onto other players. But he's a phenomenal athlete. Again, rangy, tall, has speed. He can hit. He plays physical ball. And then the other big-time safety the Gators bring in is Donovan McMillan. He's from Peter Township there in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. Now, he is a giant safety. I think he goes for 6'2", and he already weighs close to 200 pounds. He was, I believe, an all-state wrestler there in Pennsylvania as well.
Nice.
And he's just a monster there. Very athletic, very physical. And so really when you look at Gator fans who have been watching the secondary and maybe haven't quite seen the physical play from some of the safeties there, Florida's bringing in two guys who are just, I mean, that's what they're about. They're about the physicality of the game. They love the collision. So I think that you're going to see a big emphasis on just playing the position maybe with more confidence and more athleticism from this year's class. Another guy that's a little bit unheralded, and I think he's going to play safety, is Kamar Wilcoxon. Now, he's had a very interesting journey already into this 2020 season. Kamar Wilcoxon is a 4-star recruit. He really was brought in to be a nickel corner safety. He's another guy who's very physical, very big. He goes for 6'1" to 6'2". He runs a confirmed 4.4 940. He did that under the lasers at some summer camps. But his story is that he reclassified. So he actually played all year long this year on special teams with the Florida Gators, and he's going to be a freshman again. Now, he's a guy that I do anticipate seeing moved into the safety spot. I think he's tweeted out a little bit about some safety play that he's going to get to be involved in. So he's another guy that's going to factor into that safety position next year pretty heavily, just because he has basically a whole year advanced on his class. He's coming into next year as a true, quote unquote, true freshman with a whole year of SEC games under his belt. So, I mean, that's going to be huge.
Yeah. And what a weird loophole. But I'm glad we're getting to use it to our advantage.
Interesting.
And so a lot of what we've talked about has been on the defensive side. Who sticks out on the offensive side? I know that we got a quarterback, a couple of wide receivers and tight ends, and obviously a pretty big name as far as transfers go coming in this year. So who sticks out on the offensive side of the ball?
So my favorite recruit, I don't think he's the most important recruit to the class, but my favorite recruit of the class as far as just what he brings to the game, and you look at the offense that Dan Mullen has put in this season and what we're looking for, is a guy named Marcus Burke from Trinity Christian Academy of Jacksonville, Florida. He was down to Florida and Georgia early on, and he chose Florida. Obviously, 6'3", 180 pounds, and he's just a deep threat machine, man. I mean, this kid, he gets vertical, and he gets vertical fast.
Okay.
He great range, great hands, great concentration. He actually scored, I believe, the final 2 touchdowns of his state championship game to lead the comeback. Maybe it was a touchdown on the 2-point conversion. I'm not positive, but he had a monster game to win Trinity Christian that state championship game. So I think Marcus Burke is going to be a really big addition, because you're going to be able to pair him on the outside at 6'3" with guys like Xavier Henderson and Trent Whittemore, who are true freshmen this season, who also go, a 6'2", 6'3" plus.
Right.
Just Dan Mullen bringing in more physicality on the outside there. Marcus Burke. A couple other names on the offensive side. Carlos Del Rio. I don't know if you guys have heard much about Carlos Del Rio there. He's a quarterback. He goes for 6'3", 215. He's a big kid. He's physical. He does have pretty good speed, but he almost is in a mold of a Dak Prescott, sort of, with how he runs the ball. He's not going to beat you with blazing speed, but he's a very smart and very physical runner. Okay. And I believe 247 Sports has comped him to Dak Prescott and what he would look like. So obviously a name that Florida fans are familiar with, SEC fans are familiar with, NFL fans are familiar with. I'm not saying that he's going to be Dak Prescott, but definitely in the mold with the same sort of athletic traits and abilities. And we all know what Dan Mullen can do with those sort of athletes. So that's the only. I mean, those are the big things. You talked about DeMarcus Bowman transferring from Clemson. DeMarcus Bowman is a running back, obviously number 1 running back last year. Well, I think he might have been actually number 3 in the final rankings. But Marcus Bowman is my favorite running back recruit. I think he's the most talented running back to come out of Florida high school since Dalvin Cook. Just his high school tape is phenomenal. He's a blur. He's got great balance and agility. So, I mean, definitely Florida fans. He's a guy that Florida fans wanted really, really bad, and we're fortunate to get him out of the portal. Dan Mullen definitely has been able to do some phenomenal things in the portal. And then really the last guy I want to touch on is a name, and I guess just with what Kyle Trask has been able to do this year, I want to talk a little bit about Jalen Kitna. So Jalen Kitna is a quarterback out of Burleson, Texas. So going back into the state, getting another 6'4" gunslinger. Obviously, Trask's a little bigger than that, but Jalen Kitna, 6'4", 200 pounds, son of an NFL quarterback, right? So has the pedigree there, and he just shot up in between his junior and senior year. He had a big growth spurt. He's got a big arm, so I think that he's a guy to keep an eye on. I think he's like in the 900s overall rankings as a recruit. I think he's like 991st recruit overall ranking. But, I mean, we all see what Dan Mullen can do with quarterbacks, regardless of ranking, if they have the tools he's looking for. So I think he's going to be a fun guy to keep tabs on as we follow, into his career. Just to, even hard not to compare a Texas quarterback to Kyle Trask, especially when they're kind of in the same mold. So should be fun to follow.
Yeah, and I like again, like you said, coming from Texas and having that pedigree and kind of someone he can lean on to help him get through that stuff is really going to be key. And yeah, you are absolutely right. It does not matter how many stars you have next to you. If you have it up top and you have Dan Mullen as your quarterback coach, you're probably going to do all right. So one last thing for me, and then I can, Brandon, if you have any questions. I saw that we had a long snapper, a 6-star long snapper.
Oh yeah.
Really threw me for a loop. So could you explain to me and anyone listening what is going on and how does a long snapper get 6 stars?
Yeah, so there's certain recruiting services that rank just specialists, right? So you look at Rocco Underwood, who is the number 1 ranked long snapper in all of high school football. And according to the ranking services, just for long snappers, he's a 6-star recruit. And it kind of goes in detail of, it all comes down to, athleticism, size. I believe they even track the speed of the ball from the snap to it hits the punter's hand or the holder's hands. Yeah, it's wild. So he has some like ridiculously, short time in between like his snap to where it gets where it's supposed to go. So snaps with great velocity. But he also plays tight end for his high school. So Rocco Underwood, 6'4", 220 pounds, is actually a pretty talented tight end. He's a 3-star out of Lake Mary there in Lake Mary, Florida. So he's actually listed as a 3-star tight end for his school, but just has obviously the phenomenal ability to long snap. And I will say this, I do understand going after, getting yourself a long snapper. Special teams are such a huge thing. And if you listen to Brandon on the podcast at all, he talks at length about specialists, special teams, how they affect the game, how they control the game, and how they can change the game. Right. So I absolutely get going after a specialist, but a little bit of criticism I would have for Dan Mullen maybe and staff this class is I don't know that we needed to bring on a scholarship long snapper. And I think a lot of Florida fans who are out there looking at the class and looking at, maybe some names on the table are looking at maybe – I'm not saying it's a bad take, but if there are limited spots, is it the smartest take? And obviously Dan Mullen and his staff get paid millions of dollars. And so, I mean, I can't say they're wrong, but as a fan on the outside looking in, I would say that I would have a bit of critique of that signing. It's a little interesting.
Right. Now the Gators are ranked like 10th nationally. What would you give a grade for the Gators this year if you had to give one?
Yeah, so the Gators come in 10th nationally as of early signing day, and we still have signing day to go in February. Right. So names are still on the table there for the Florida Gators, but 5th in the SEC at the moment. So right now, I mean, I think you look at what we've done on defense. So if you look at what the Gators did on defense, bringing in a phenomenal secondary class, phenomenal linebacker class, really strong defensive line class, I mean, you're looking at really like an A, and we'd still missed on some guys that we wanted. When you look at the defensive side, however, the offensive side, however, the offensive line class probably needed to be a little bit stronger. Just Tristan Lee, 5-star offensive tackle, still on the board down to Florida and Oklahoma, could still announce for the Gators. That could affect things pretty significantly. But the offensive line class did need to be a little bit stronger. I like Carlos Del Rio. I do like Marcus Burke. I think the tight end class was pretty solid, but I mean, just given what was left on the table, Ja'Cory Brooks, 5-star wide receiver, heading to Alabama. You look at Christian Leary, who's borderline 5-star wide receiver, also heading to Alabama from the state of Florida. You look at guys like Williams, Mario Williams, 4-star wide receiver. He might be a 5-star actually now. And I should have prepared that one, but I believe he's borderline 5-star wide receiver. Another wide receiver from the state of Florida. He's heading to Oklahoma. And so you look at what was on the table for Dan Mullen and his offense, considering what they were able to do in 18 and 19 and how they looked with Trask, and what they were able to put on the film this year with how we use wide receivers. That's a B- to me, maybe even a C+, because while we went out and got guys that can help us, or Florida got guys that can help them, it's a bit of a head scratcher why some of the state's premier talent is heading to, other schools. So for Florida early signing day, I'm glad they got all their guys they sent out letter of intent to, but I'll probably just say a B- for an overall. There's still some guys that I really like. Jeremiah Scooby Williams, the linebacker. I love his nickname. He announced talking about how he's got his Scooby sacks. So, I mean,
nice.
I'm a big fan. I think he's going to be a great addition. Tyreek Sapp, another defensive lineman. So Florida went out and did some great things, but B- overall.
Okay. All right. Brandon, you got anything?
Yeah, a couple observations and a couple of questions. Thanks, Jared. That was very thorough. First observation is I continue to be impressed with the reach the Florida Gators have. You mentioned the guy out of Pennsylvania that was a dual sport guy in wrestling. That's just something the Florida State Seminoles really aren't used to, because we are really good at, as you can weigh in more and attest to, kind of recruiting the East Coast a lot. And there's just not a lot of wrestling schools unless you go really, really north. But that's mostly like the Midwest and the Big 12 area. So that's impressive there. And what a skill set to have. I mean, if you're good at wrestling, that's going to balance out your balance, your agility, and those make good linebackers / running backs. So there's one thing there. That again, with the SEC, it's really tough to go 10th in the nation and 5th overall in the conference, but that's the world you guys live in. So kudos to that. Some things I've heard, Jared, over the last couple of years is that Dan Mullen isn't the best at recruiting. So I wonder if you might weigh in on how you feel about that, and does it matter to how the success is on the field, and does this year change that opinion? So I'll leave it there.
Yeah. So, everybody's a guru, right? You get on Twitter and, we have the hot takes, and we're just living in an era of social media where, fans can voice their opinions for better or for worse. And I think it's overall a good thing for the sport, but I do think that people get a little crazy with it at times. I do think Dan Mullen is not the strongest recruiter. I mean, let's just call facts or facts. I mean, it's hard to sit here and say, well, 3 top 10 classes consecutive, considering what, where he got it with what McElwain was doing. You look at Dan Mullen, 3 top 10 classes, 3 New Year's 6 bowl games. And you're looking at, well, Florida's in the top 10. Like, I mean, you're going to have to split hairs a little bit, though, because the people who are above him in that are your Georgias, your Alabamas, your LSUs, who are direct, Florida or Georgia and LSU are obviously, main competition for the Gators. So, I do think some of those critiques are very fair of Dan Mullen and his staff. I think Dan Mullen as a head coach is a pretty solid recruiter. I think there's some staff members maybe who aren't really pulling their weight with some of those classes. Do look at the job that Christian Robinson did from the linebacking perspective. He signed 3 great linebackers but had a chance at a couple more that we missed out on. Xavier Story heading to Georgia. So, there's some. I think the critiques are fair of Dan Mullen's recruiting. It's just, I think that anytime you have a season like he did in 18 and 19, where he's coming in, big bowl win against Michigan, big bowl win last season too, and now coming in, going to get set to play Oklahoma. I think that Florida fans probably expect a little more. Can we get into the top 5? Because that's probably where they should be.
Okay. Awesome. And then, of course, I couldn't leave the special teams untouched. But, the thing to keep in mind with long snappers, the 6-star thing I had no idea about. But almost all of those guys are actually position players at something else. So this guy's a tight end, but nobody ever says, I'm going to go pro and being a long snapper. It's almost like you convert these guys later on. I'll use a baseball analogy here. If a guy starts to lose his pitch, he will switch to knuckleballing late in his career. That's what Tim Wakefield did. Okay. They all convert, right? Ryan Perilou, who was a quarterback at LSU, actually tried that. Believe it or not. He tried to go pro and like knuckleballing. So you get guys that try and make it at one place and they can't do it, so long snapping is a backup. Florida State actually had a guy, Garrison Sanborn, who was like a linebacker and played some of the trench plays here and there, but he became a long snapper in college because he couldn't cut at the other positions. So I absolutely agree. Scholarships positions are so rare and so coveted. I can't imagine why he would take a guy like that. That's really something you want to fill with something else. So I completely agree. Plus, the way that a lot of college teams punt the ball, they're going to split the guys wide. That way you can get distance and you can get traction to your gunner, basically. And you can kind of hide some schemes there and some weaknesses. But when you get to the NFL, it's a totally different game. And a lot of college programs don't prepare a long snapper for those adjustments. So let's just hope that Mullen doesn't waste that talent. If you're going to go ahead and put a scholarship out there, make sure you adapt special teams to it.
Yeah, correct. Couldn't agree more with you with your take.
Yep, but that's all I had.
Yeah, same for me. Thanks, Jared.
Absolutely.
I love talking Gator football with you.
Anytime, man. That's what I do.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's again, great synopsis. Let's go ahead and move on to the Florida State Seminoles, if you don't mind. I know it's not your favorite team to talk about, but I appreciate that you got it out. The Noles had some interesting signees this year. So what was your take on the class?
So Florida State, really a tumultuous year, and I think you would probably agree with that when you're looking at the Florida State Seminoles and Mike Norvell taking over year one. And as tumultuous as it was on the field, that obviously bleeds into recruiting, right? You're going to have guys in high school who are watching the program, watching them week in and week out, and they want to see that program take the next step, especially with a coach like Norvell. And I know that we've talked in the past about it. And I'm a pretty big Mike Norvell fan, actually, in Memphis. I thought he probably should have got a Power 5 job before he did. So really just taking a deep dive in their class. Currently, after early signing day, they sit at 22nd and 4th in the ACC. So not all is lost there, right? So you're looking at, obviously, Clemson and what they've been doing with the ACC. So 4th in the ACC. Last year, they were 4th under Taggart, as he exited the program and Norvell came in. So sitting 4th after early signing day. And really a strong close, in my opinion, with some guys. And there's still some guys out there that Florida State is, I think, going to land. So I don't think all is terrible for Florida State at the moment, but they still do have some work to do. A couple guys that I really like from their class, Chambry Jackson. He's a strong side defensive end. He's about 6'2", 6'3", 235, 240 pounds, out of Boone High School in Orlando. I'm a big fan of his game. Very physical, very athletic. He's got the size, so I really think Chambry's going to be a guy that can step in and help them early. I like Patrick Payton out of Northwestern Miami, Florida. He's about 6'4", 6'5". He goes for 200 pounds. He's an outside linebacker, so he has some weight to put on, but you can't teach 6'5" at outside linebacker, and he has, he's great sideline to sideline, a lot of athleticism. So I think Peyton's a guy for Florida State fans that can really bring that athleticism back to that second level of the defense. I mean, I don't think he's, quite an Ernie Sims type of freak athlete, but definitely a much needed infusion of athleticism there for the Florida State Seminoles. Another guy that I really want to follow is a cornerback named Hunter Washington out of Katy, Texas. Obviously, being from Texas, man, I like the Texas kids. So anytime I'm going to put on, for the Texas kids. But he's out of Katy, Texas. He's 5'11". He's 178 pounds. And just another solid signing there for Mike Norvell. I think he brings a lot to the table, a name that a lot of Florida State fans may not have followed, but he is ranked nationally. I believe he's like the 250th ranked according to 247 Sports. So, he's heralded. He's a guy that a lot of people are big on. He has some work to do with his speed. I think his opening regional back in 2019, he was only like at a 4.7. But I mean, again, you're going to grow, and that speed's going to come. 32-inch vert, 4.25 in the shuttle there for Hunter. So quick sideline to sideline. He's got good quick twitch, and I think he's going to be a guy that Florida State fans are really going to enjoy seeing out there.
All right. Yeah, kind of heavy on the defense. So that was my next question is, out of all of the guys, who should be excited about the most? I think you kind of answered that. And I've kind of followed Chambray, and so we see that I guess the idea with him is to say he's a defensive end, but then slide him into the interior later on maybe. And then was there any defensive positions you thought Florida State missed on and didn't get a guy for?
Yeah, I would have liked to see Florida State be a little bit stronger on the defensive line. You obviously, Jackson is a guy that you can slide inside. You do sign Joshua Farmer out of Gadsden County, Havana, down in Havana, Florida. He's going to be a strong side defensive end, but you really don't have that true defensive tackle. And you look at what Florida State is going to be losing up front there on the defensive tackle spot, and then I believe they had just had a transfer out of there also. So I really feel like they could use a little bit more numbers up there on the defensive line. So I feel like maybe that's the position where if I'm a Florida State fan, I would really be looking for Norvell to go into the portal and really maybe either find some defensive line talent or, close with some guys that they've been evaluating for a while.
Okay. Yeah, Odo Haggins just continues to do what he does. I think there's, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong here, a little bit of a slide off on the talent he's gotten. And then also if you could weigh in on what Florida State got on the offensive side of the ball and then what scares you about what they didn't get.
Yeah, so I think number one for the offensive side of the ball, and a name that a lot of Florida football fans would be maybe excited about or maybe just familiar with, is a dual threat quarterback there named Mackenzie Milton, the transfer from UCF. Now, probably some questions to answer about his health still, but we all saw what Mackenzie Milton is able to do from the quarterback position and from a leadership standpoint. So he's coming to Florida State from the portal there at UCF. And if he can go, that changes the dynamic of that offense quite a bit. I think Florida State definitely in some flux with the quarterback position right now, and can definitely use some stability as a single caller, even if it's just in the locker room. Even if McMilton's not taking the snaps, he knows what it takes to win. He's been in a winning locker room. He's went undefeated. He knows what the attitude of his teammates needs to be. He knows how to instill those principles into guys. So even if Milton never takes a significant snap for Florida State, what he's going to bring to the locker room is going to be invaluable for Norvell in changing the culture there. So I really do like the signing of Mackenzie Milton from that standpoint. A lot of fans are going to talk about his health, but what you have to understand is there's more to football than just going out and taking a snap. What he's going to be able to do in practice, what he's going to be able to see on the field, what he's going to be able to teach player to player, it's going to be big. So I like what they're doing there. I do like what Florida State. I think they need to get a little more depth at wide receiver in this class. They've signed a few guys, and I think that they're talented. The guys at Florida State, Malik McCain from IMG Academy from Bradenton, he's massive, man. 6'4", 200 pounds, rangy, can jump out the gym. He's a guy that could go up and get you some jump balls. He's a big physical need that they have on the outside, especially with Terry, exiting that program.
Yeah.
So Malik McCain is a guy that could get some early playing time. So I really, and then obviously Joshua Burrell from South Carolina, another 6'2" wide receiver there. So bringing in some size, but I would like to see a little more from the position. A lot of Florida State fans may point to running back position. Well, like Florida State didn't really sign a running back. Well, did you see who they signed last year? And if you watched Florida State this season, some of their bright spots were some of those freshmen that were coming in. So, I really like I may mispronounce his name, but Toafili.
Toafili, you got it. Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoy him. I think Corey Wren is a guy that is still, up there that can be counted on to do some great things. But Damian Webb, I I don't know that he got a lot of time. The Florida State offense obviously, still has some work to do, but the talent is there at that position.
Yeah. So a couple of things about running back is Norvell's bread and butter. It was announced, I think, a couple of days ago. Webb officially is transferring to Troy. This appears to be nothing Florida State related, but all family related. Because why would you go to Troy? He's from that area, and so he had some family issues he wanted to get back near home for. But there's so many guys that Norvell can get running back, and you're like, what does he see in him? And then you're like, oh, okay, there you go. I think Tony Pollard's a great example because he rushed for 1,200 yards last year, and then he's lighting up in the NFL. So I actually really don't feel too worried about that. You nailed it, though, with wide receiver. I was kind of concerned, especially given how we just had so much attrition at that position this year. How it kind of surprised you both to say, we were down to one scholarship wide receiver by the end of the season. After Ontario Wilson got hurt, we had Poitier, and that was it. Keyshawn Helton may be on scholarship, but we don't really use him that much. And that's why we started splitting out a lot of running backs. And then against Duke in the last game of the season, you're like, okay, nobody is on the wide receiver depth chart going to catch a pass today because we don't have any. But the way that Norvell kind of runs the offense, I wouldn't think that'd be too much of a problem, right, Jared? He can just kind of incorporate it or do like he did with Corbin out of Texas A&M. He just get a good transfer.
That's what I was about to say. I think that they're definitely going to be in play for some transfers there. Chris Curry will be transferring from LSU. I don't know if if you guys are familiar with Chris Curry. He's from Lee Acres, Florida. He's a running back for LSU. I believe they awarded him the 18 jersey this past season.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he's a big team guy for you guys who follow that. So he's a guy to keep an eye on as Florida State maybe has an opening there. And so obviously a Florida guy right there maybe is a name to keep an eye on. I wouldn't be TJ Pledger out of Oklahoma. Obviously just entered the portal today or yesterday. And he's a name to keep an eye on. I don't know, he's originally from California, I believe, but USC and UCLA I think are both pretty full at the moment. So maybe Norvell, throws a line, sees what's going on with TJ Pledger there. I think he played at IMG too. And I know he did. So while he's from California, Pledger, played there at IMG in Bradenton, Florida. So familiarity with the state. Wouldn't be surprised to see Norvell go into the portal and really kick the tires on either of those guys with the need there.
Awesome. I had a couple questions to wrap up, but I'll let Chris jump in if he had anything real quick.
No, I mean, you guys actually, Brandon, you've asked the questions I was going to ask. So I'm just going to ask what I asked with Florida. I need some grades, man. Give me some grades.
Yep, me too.
In the past year, I've been really kind of cognizant of the landscape things when I give out these grades, because when Norvell took over year one, obviously I'm not going to grade it on the same scale because it's hard to do that. With the class that he's brought in, I think he's got some guys, but I think this Florida State class still has some work to do. 22nd coming off of the year they've had and all of the turmoil they've had, it's understandable.
Right.
And they have filled a lot of needs. I would really like to see a couple more offensive linemen from them, really wide receiver, as Brandon mentioned, really down on some numbers there. As far as early signing day goes, I'm going to say probably a C+ for Florida State out of there. But there's still some names on the board that the Florida State fans keep on. Marcus Fleming, a slot wide receiver from Nebraska, he's in the portal. Maybe he's a guy that they bring in. The portal is going to be crucial this year to a lot of programs in the state. So as we get portal combat underway, I think you're going to look for a coach like Norvell to really kind of go the Dan Mullen route, to really capture some talent there. And so C+ from early signing day. Let's wait until the portal plays out and February comes before we really kind of, stick them with that.
Okay. I think that's pretty fair. It's hard for me to go any higher than that because there's just still so many things. The Mackenzie Milton is a big get, and I think you painted that picture perfectly. So that it kind of makes the sting of Luke Altmaier transferring to Ole Miss instead of us, or getting waved away, a little bit less painful.
What are your thoughts on Milton, Brandon?
So his leadership, you nailed right on the head. There's a lot of things there that UCF fans are going to miss about him, and his personality is the biggest one. His unique approach to how he can see the game is probably one of his biggest strengths because he knows exactly when to take off and run out of the pocket if he knows it's not there. One of the best games he actually played was against Auburn in the Peach Bowl. I know that's cliche to say, but the reason that it was the best game is because he started the game off like 1 of 7. And he immediately saw within the first 4 drives, this defense is not allowing me to get the pass. So he started running himself out of it. And he was able to constantly put pressure on them and just bust these, like, I think he ran for like a 15-yard touchdown in the first quarter. Up to that point, it was like UCF doesn't even stand a chance in this game. And that completely changed everything. Now his mobility, I mean, I'm not going to harp on it anymore. It's been 2 years since he played. Everybody knows that by now. It's a huge asset. I'm amazed he didn't go to Nebraska, number one. And number two, the fact that he's kind of held the clipboard, going through the motions in the rehab. I mean, he's got to be a motivational speaker at this point. I really thought UCF might have hired him away, considering he's probably their hero. I'm extremely thrilled.
Yeah, it's a good assessment. I'm excited for him. Whether, like I said, whether he's able to step in and be fully recovered, that would be awesome. And if not, just what he can do to change the perception and the culture there in the locker room, I think would be it's fun to watch.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a huge get, just because you've seen that position has just been a struggle for Florida State. And Jordan Travis is great, but he's not like the next guy. Yeah. And this guy, Milton, if he has the rehab and gets back to even a partial of what it was doing, I think it's a huge get for Florida State.
Yeah, everyone's going to talk about like the weak schedule he plays in the American. I mean, that's all good and well, but he owned Norvell at Memphis. And that's probably why they got him, because they're like, I need to know what your secret is. What cheat code did you enter that you just were able to score 60 against us every game?
Right.
And the other number that I like about it is 23 victories in a row. Okay, that's something I'll take every day.
Yeah, winning is contagious, and definitely more than going out and scoring points. It's the work you put in, and having a proven winner in your locker room. Like I said earlier, man, I think that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Right, man. Good assessment as well on that. So I guess we'll move on to the Miami Hurricanes. They always seem to get talent, and they just, I don't know, maybe they still continued that, but it doesn't really translate on the field. What were your thoughts on the 2021 class?
Miami of the big three in the state. Well, Miami in the state of Florida. I don't think I'm going to consider them as part of the big three after they're showing against North Carolina. But what I'm going to say about their class is very good. So if there's other Miami fans out there listening, I do not like your school, but I absolutely respect what you've been able to do this year in the 2021 recruiting class. Mm-hmm. Strongest closes out of all of the schools, Florida State, FAU, FIU, all the schools in the state. Miami had a phenomenal early signing day, and they really brought in a boatload of talent. My favorite recruit for the Miami Hurricanes is Leonard Taylor. He was really, trending to Florida early on in his junior season into the summer. COVID happened, and, made a lot of people think. And Leonard Taylor really evaluated the situation, maybe evaluated where he felt he could see himself at the next level. Miami really talked to him. He was rated as a defensive tackle. That's what Florida was looking at him as a defensive tackle. But he's going to start out as a defensive end there for Miami. He's out of Palmetto. So 5-star cornerback Jason Marshall, who signed with Florida. He's his teammate, Corey Collier, the safety son of Florida, with Leonard Taylor is the Palmetto. He was one of the famed Palmetto 5. There were 5 big recruits from Palmetto there, and Leonard Taylor was one of them. So 5-star defensive tackle, defensive end there. Miami signed him, was able to really trend well in the summer, get him signed on early signing day. He's going to be huge for the Miami defensive line as they're losing some guys, and some of those transfers are kind of moving on. Leonard Taylor, man, he's going to be fun to watch. Very athletic, 6'4", 265. So he's going to be a lot of fun, man. The other 5-star they signed is James Williams. He's a safety. Now, James Williams is a monster. Now, we talked about Donovan McMillan being a big guy. James Williams is like 6'5", 200 and almost probably 20 pounds. He's going to play safety there at Miami. I have some questions about if he's going to be able to stay at safety or if he's going to have to, move to linebacker. But 5-star talent, phenomenal size, good ball skills. James Williams is going to be a name to watch for Miami fans. Miami fans have obviously have a strong tradition at safety, with some of the legendary names they've had there. So James Williams is the best prospect they've had back there in a long time, in my opinion. So I think that, he's going to be fun to watch. The reason I think that Miami had such a great close, though, is they were able to sign Jake Garcia who was a quarterback, 4-star quarterback, number 46 overall in the country. And Jake Garcia, man, he's just a playmaker. He's 6'2", almost 200 pounds, 195 pounds, but he's able to really kind of be the first big time quarterback that Manny Diaz is going to be able to bring in. He has a lot of comparisons to Ryan Tannehill with, how he's very athletic, how he's got a really effortless delivery. So I really like some things that Jake Garcia could potentially do there in running Rhett Lashley's offense. Derek King likely exiting. So, I don't know, maybe he stays, maybe he doesn't, but if he moves on, they may have to count on Garcia early. The depth, as we've all seen after King, is not great.
Mm-hmm.
So you almost, if you're a Miami fan, man, you probably really want King back to give Garcia that year to, step into it, not just throw him in the fire.
That's a good point.
But yeah, man, really good class. Miami addressed a lot of needs on the offensive line. They brought in a really good receiver named Brashard Smith, one of the other members of the Palmetto Five there. He's 5'9", 190 pounds. He may be a little bit taller than that. Phenomenal athlete, man. This kid was born to play the slot. Great hands, elite speed, great quickness. So he's going to be fun to watch for Miami fans for a long time. Confirmed 4.46 speed. Really true slot receiver. I think that some 247 Sports guys have compared him to Tyreek Hill. I don't quite see that sort of speed, but he's a burner for sure.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was just saying, Diaz, just with his recruiting, it reminds me a lot of Muschamp, just able to recruit the defensive guys and able to, develop them on the field. He's just going to need help on the offensive side of the ball, and I think Garcia can be that guy. And like you said, if King's not there, I think Garcia has a really legit shot of starting early.
Yep, and I think that with what they brought in last year, look at the running backs for Miami who played really well at the early season. Garcia could be that missing link well, King obviously was a missing link, but I'm saying that after King leaves, Garcia could be that sort of missing link that's on campus to really run that show and have a couple years to develop in that system.
Yeah.
Gotcha. My only question is going to be is it Manny Diaz that is the answer, or is it just the continuity of staff that allowed them to land such a great class?
Yeah, so Manny Diaz, obviously South Florida ties. He's a great recruiter. They have a pretty good staff. I think that where Miami fans would really fault their staff is good. When it comes to cornerback, Miami has really struggled to bring on some big name cornerbacks. You look at what they were able to do with James Williams, a 5-star safety. They brought in another really talented safety, Kamar Kinchins from Northwestern Miami. They're down there in Miami, Florida. Now he's another talented safety, but when you look at cornerback, Miami really struggling to bring on some elite talent there this year. Jason Marshall, obviously coming to Florida, was a big blow because that's a position they really need to infuse some more talent in. Singletary out of Jacksonville, he's a 5-star in this next round, the 22 class. He's looking at Ohio State, looking like maybe Florida can get back in the mix there. But another big time safety they missed out on. So I think that if you're a Miami fan, you really want to see more better recruiting at the cornerback position. But Manny Diaz's staff, so far has been pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. All right. So I guess the question that Chris and I have is, what grade do you give them, and do you think the grade that they got nationally is fair?
Yeah, so nationally they're ranked, I don't know if I said that already, but they're 11th overall with, I believe they have 21 who have signed on already. So good average there. I think it's fair. They're second ranked in the ACC, obviously behind Clemson, but pretty solid for Miami. Really good coming off of their season last year. So I'll give them an A on this class easily. I think there's some needs that they needed to address at wide receiver. Maybe I think they have a couple good ones, but with the talent in Fort, with Smith and Brinson, really solid receiver class. But you want to see him have that just another guy. Everybody always wants another guy. Cornerback was probably their big glaring need that they didn't really fulfill. But other than that, man, that's a solid class for Manny Diaz.
Cool. Here's my overall opinion of Miami. Probably the last 5 years. They arguably have some of the best non-quarterback position groups in the nation, and I think this just tells you how important a quarterback is. Look at their tight ends. They had Brevin Jordan, they had Mallory, right? I think I talked about how much I like their special teams. I know you guys are tired of hearing about that. But with Headley and Borregales, the transfer this year, they've been successful there. You mentioned the secondary, but then the quarterback never seemed to piece it together. And last year took some steps, I guess, with getting Derek King, but it still wasn't a full answer as we've seen down the stretch. And that's what puzzles me. And then again, second in the ACC, but they never finished second in the conference. And so I wonder what the disconnect is there. It's really weird.
As good as King is, and he's a phenomenal quarterback. I mean, he's a phenomenal college quarterback. You look at his career and what he was done. As good as he is, I think there's still some limitations there with what he's able to do for the quarterback position. Now, he does a good job of running Lashley's, NASCAR speed, hurry-up offense. But the issue with that is if you're not continuously getting first downs as every football fan knows, then you're just going 3 and out really fast. Mm-hmm. And so I think that there's still some limitations with King, and that's silly to even think about and say, given what he's been able to do with the football. But if you really dial into some of those Miami games, I mean, yeah, their offensive line needs to be a lot better for them, but they have really quality running backs. And, you have a guy like King back there who, honestly, as good as he is, just needs to be better with the football. There's some misses that he'll have from the pocket. Sometimes maybe he'll bail a little bit early. So I know it's probably crazy to say this, and there are a lot of listeners who think I'm probably insane, even, mentioning the notion, but King is a great college quarterback. I'm not saying he's not. I don't know that he's the idea quarterback that Miami needs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I don't know about controversial, but it's that's a hot take.
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, you can't argue that too much.
I gotta think about it.
It hasn't translated into wins over top 25 teams as we were talking about. Yeah.
That's my thing. I'm not saying, I mean, you watch any game and he's so much fun to watch, but when you look at successful quarterbacks this cycle, or even last year, coming into this year, and even if I'll even stay away from Florida schools, right? I won't even talk about Kyle Trask, but when you look at Mac Jones, Sam Howell, what he was able to do later in the season, after the Florida State loss, and even before that, you look at guys who are consistently running a system and making check down throws. They're making throws, dropping dimes in there when they have to throw the back shoulder, and they're commanding an offense. And King does a great job of commanding Lashley's offense. But when you're putting together drives and you're putting together tapes and you got to go out and get a win, there's just some times where King misses on some things, and I'm just like, maybe he would be more successful in a different sort of offense. And I know that's crazy because he looks like he's tailor-made for Lashley, but I don't know, man. There's a lot of times where I see him drop back and just not quite be able to do what they need him to do.
Interesting point. Yeah. Otherwise, I didn't have anything else about Miami unless, Chris, you had something else to add.
Yeah, that's it for me. Great insight.
Absolutely. And if we're okay, we can move on from the Hurricanes. I don't think anyone's going to argue about that. We'll take a few minutes, Jared, to kind of whip around the state. I know you had some things you wanted to mention about the UCF Knights, a trend you noticed, and then FAU and Willie Taggart's success in year one.
Yeah, so UCF, I'll just touch on them real quick. So 61st ranked class coming after early signing day. What I want to talk a little bit about UCF is just how they're sort of removing themselves from that top spot in the AAC. For a couple years there, they were just number one class in the AAC. Last year they finished 7th in the AAC. Right now, currently they're ranked 4th in the AAC, with schools like SMU, obviously Cincinnati above them. And that's a school who could really, capitalize on their talent in the Orlando area that they have there, a lot of talent there. But as they continue to sort of slip and get away from those top 2 spots in the AAC, you kind of start to wonder, can they get back to the success they had with Scott Frost? Not that there's not a successful program, but I think that everyone could agree that we've seen them take at least a step back.
Sure.
From what we're going on there. They signed some good guys, and they got some guys that I'm pretty excited. I think that UCF fans are excited about. The defensive tackle Hundley from IMG Academy. I think UCF fans will probably like him. And then obviously Mikey Keene from Chandler, Arizona there, the dual threat quarterback. So, I think there's some talent there, but it's just going to be interesting to see how they translate and can they get back to consistently winning the AAC? Can they beat Tulsa? So That's going to be the question moving forward for Coach Heupel. I think he's the right guy, and I think it's just going to be a story to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Tulsa is the one that makes no sense to me. I don't understand. They've always been an Achilles heel ever since UCF joined it, even under the George O'Leary days. It's just that team that just gets them for whatever reason. Do you have any concerns about the quarterback room now that Mackenzie Milton's leaving? I know that you've got. I think I heard one of the guy like Quadri Jones might be transferring out too.
I do have some questions about the quarterback room there at UCF. The depth's obviously going to take a hit there, and that's such a program that was really kind of built on what Mackenzie Milton was able to do at the quarterback position, and he was the trigger man for pretty much all of that success. Yeah. And even when he went out, UCF was still very talented, man. The quarterback room looked in good shape, but now you're losing some of the depth, you're losing some of the leadership. Obviously, with him coming out. And then what are you bringing in? Is it the same sort of athlete? Can you have time to develop it? Obviously, Coach Heupel knows quarterbacks, and he's going to be able to get a guy that can take that snap. But I do think there's a drop-off there. And if I'm a UCF fan, I'm kind of wondering and I don't know that Mackenzie Milton was lightning, striking for them, but, can we get another one that can sort of bring that same sort of attitude and leadership to the program? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying they can't, but right now I'm just not seeing who that would be.
Gotcha. I have one other comment, and then Chris, I wonder, and this is a topic for another episode probably, but I wonder if Randy Shannon's scheme of let's go after the ball and get yards is still going to work going forward. I think they may have to address that in the next couple of years. But anything else you want to add, Chris, about the Knights and their class?
No, I think you guys covered it all.
Yep. All right. So I guess the big question here again, what are their grade nationally? Yeah. And then do you agree with it? And do you have your own grade?
So, so they're ranked 61st nationally, 4th in the AAC. With UCF and the success they've coming off of, I really I don't know. I would like to see them in the top 2 there. I think they addressed the needs. They went out and got, a lot of positions that they needed help at. I would like to see a little bit more talent. SMU is able to bring in some 4-star, recruits there from the AAC conference. And I believe SMU is the only one who was able to sign a 4-star there in the AAC. But there's no reason with all of those guys in Florida that UCF shouldn't be just able to get that talent level to the next step. Only an 84 average rating for their recruits out of 100. Not ideal if you're looking to take the next step, or as the Knights say, charge on to the next step. I would like to see a little bit more. So I probably would only give them maybe a B- this class. They address their needs, but man, I would like to see a little bit more talent, especially with, all of it in Orlando.
All right. Very good. All right. Dealer's choice, Jared. You move on to any school you want from here on out.
Yeah. So I'm going to quick hit a couple schools here back to back. FAU coming in with the 72nd ranked recruiting class. Willie Taggart there, number 1 in Conference USA in his inaugural year. Getting the FAU program, the Owls there, to a bowl game in year 1. So very interesting what he's been able to do there. His big recruit right now is Keshawn Green, the transfer from Nebraska, the outside linebacker, the 4-star linebacker. So I think that's going to be fun to watch and see what Willie Taggart's able to do. I'm still uncertain as to what his exact offensive philosophy is. I know he talks about when he was at Florida State, he talked about the Gulf Coast and all that stuff, but I should watch some more FAU games, but as far as their class goes, I think he's making a splash there in Conference USA. So definitely something to keep an eye on for Willie Taggart, as he's able to recruit well in his conference. So hats off to him. USF, another sort of lackluster class there for the Bulls. 68th overall ranked, 5th in the AAC. Just not a lot of an infusion of talent there for USF. They were able to get some guys I'm excited about. The 3-star athlete out of Lawton Childs, Jalen Herring, there out of Tallahassee, Florida. I think he's going to be fun maybe in the coming years. He could develop into a solid prospect for them. And then obviously, Gunnar Greenwald, the tight end they signed out of Satellite Beach, Florida there. I think he's going to be fun to watch, but not a lot to talk about with USF this year. So, But how about Coach Jeff Scott, and what he was able to do year 1 and kind of maybe take the first step in getting that program moving in the right direction. So, we'll see. It's going to be definitely something that's going to be an uphill climb for Coach Scott in that program. But, USF does have the ability, and we've seen it, if they can get the athletes to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think Jeff Scott is the right way to go. A guy like that. He struggled. I actually kind of, in my mind, was kind of comparing him to Sam Pittman in Arkansas. He has actually got his guys ready to play now. South Florida, to their credit, despite the fact they only won one game week 1, never gave up. They constantly fought, and they played a lot of teams to the end. It's UCF and Memphis included. So eventually those will turn into wins, and he's got to do what he's got to do with the talent he has. But like you said with UCF, the Orlando talent, and everybody in Tampa there, you're going to be able to get some guys if it's grad transfers or hey, it's 2 or 3 stars that didn't get picked up by a big D1 school in the Power 5. He can snatch them up. I just think South Florida has a lot of problem from the top up. The administration just doesn't seem to support the program or the athletics very well, and he's kind of up against it. He's going to have to win first to get the support later, I guess. I don't know.
It's much maligned. I think we've all followed USF there, and so I think I agree with you, Brandon. I think Scott's the right guy. I hope and wish him the best of luck there. I would like to see them be able to be real competitive in that conference again. Mm-hmm. So tough sledding there, Coach Strong, and so moving on to a new chapter. Hopefully this is sort of their calm before the storm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's anything to say about FIU.
So I didn't intentionally leave off at FIU, but as you guys know, I'm a pretty big Lane Kiffin fan. And those FIU battles were like, and now with Taggart coming in, and so Butch Davis doesn't have that arch nemesis in Lane Kiffin anymore. So I don't know if it's, I don't know. They're 5th ranked in the Conference USA, 94th ranked nationally. They did sign a couple of guys that I like. Demetrius Hill, the safety from Miami Springs. I think he's pretty athletic. I know he's pretty athletic. So I think he could be a guy that could maybe be pretty fun for those FIU fans out there to watch. And then Savion Williams, the strong side defensive end transfer from Tennessee. I think he's going to be a guy to keep an eye on there for Coach Davis. So I don't get the Lane Kiffin, Coach Davis battles anymore, but FIU obviously still plugging along there, and Coach Davis continues to bring in some talent.
Yeah, hopefully these recruits will bring in some victories next year.
Yeah.
So they need it.
After going winless this year, I mean, really, what do you expect out of the FIU Panthers? A bowl game is pretty much the target every season. Go 6-6. Mm-hmm. So as long as you can get there, I don't see a reason why you don't keep Butch Davis. But if you want to take another step up and you actually want to pursue something better, then you think about moving on. Otherwise, I mean, why not just ride him out till he retires? I don't see any reason to go another direction.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Does that cover every school?
It does.
How about that?
Unless you want to go to FAMU.
Well, FAMU's got to worry about getting another season in. They had to sit out all of 2020. But, man, Jared, that was quite informative. Thank you so much. That is a great rundown. Just a general question before we wrap up. Was there anything in the state that really caught you by surprise? Any just huge surprises this year?
So I don't know if there was any one recruit that was just like a shocker. Like we're just like, oh man, I can't believe that happened. But the one surprising thing is that the in-state talent continues. The top in-state talent continues to leave the state. And so when you're looking at Miami and Florida State, like, yes, they were able to bring in some big-time Florida recruits, but there's so many guys on this board who are incredibly talented, who could help out those programs right away, who chose to, go to an Alabama or a Georgia or a Clemson. And so that for me is just the biggest surprise with the recent success of Florida, with Mike Norvell coming in and bringing a new energy to the program, with what Manny Diaz has been able to do down there in South Florida, bringing back the energy, although I don't care for the rings or whatever they have going on. But he brings some swagger back, and the shocker to me is just, some of those big name guys and some of those guys who are program changers going to other programs out of state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. you have to win the state, is what they always say in recruiting first. When it's usually you have to battle against the other teams in Florida, but now you have to battle against outside teams. But if you want to get back to being top, you have to win the state, and because there's so much talent within the state of Florida.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that not only you, Jared, but I mean all of it, 24/7 Sports and then Rivals.com, they're noticing that trend as well, and it's really shocking. I mean, it's crazy to think that you were 5 years ago. I think wasn't it Florida State like in 2015, 2016 had the number one recruiting class in the nation, and we're not too far away from a Florida State national championship, or like you said, Florida being in so many New Year's Six bowls. And, Miami just having crazy talent down in South Florida. So it really does blow the mind. Is there an answer for why it's happening?
I mean, at the end of the day, you look at what Alabama's done and the dynasty they've built over this past decade, and the championships they win and the way they run their program. You look at what Dabo Swinney has brought in at Clemson. And at the end of the day, those big programs are going to go get the best recruits. They're going to go after the best guys, and Florida's probably the best state to get those guys. So having those championship pedigrees has kind of really hurt the in-state schools from a recruiting standpoint. And Clemson's been doing it for a while, even back to the days of C.J. Spiller and Jamie Harper and those guys out of Jacksonville and Union County, choosing to go to Clemson. So they've been doing it a while, and then they know how to recruit the state. Nick Saban obviously knows how to recruit the state. 4 of the top 9 wide receivers signed with Alabama. 3 of them are from the state of Florida. So that's, it's like you said, it's just they've instilled a championship program, and the other programs definitely have a lot of catching up to do, or a little catching up to do, however you want to look at that. But there's definitely some work to be done in keeping that in-state talent in-state.
Okay. Here's a random thought I didn't have any place for. I think that with the transfer portal opening up, and now, I mean, like you said, there's no wait, and the guys can transfer. Was it twice? They can do one transfer if they're a graduate, and then just transfer immediately. Did I get that correct, Jared?
Yeah. So graduate transfers obviously get immediate, but with the new rule passing, you get a one-time free pass.
How about that?
Okay.
So what that means to me as a school that may not get the best recruits is still keep up those contacts and keep that relationship there, because there may be a time a couple years down the road when it fails at the school you're at, and you may snatch them up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were close and you were top 3 or 5, and you stay in touch, do a text, like their tweets, something, right? I mean, that would be a good approach.
Don't burn bridges.
Absolutely not. With the portal and the way it is, you never know what's going to happen at a school. You never know what's going to happen in the off season. You never know when a pandemic's going to hit, and you just want to be closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't envy the job of a Division I college football recruiter. I mean, I don't even know how you would have a home life or, anything like that, because you're constantly in social media, engaging your recruits on Twitter, checking up with them, trying not to get outworked by the next guy or the next staff. So definitely never want to burn a bridge, because you never know when, you're going to have an opening, you're going to have a scholarship, and you got a guy who can come in and help you out.
Oh, cool. I'm glad I'm not alone. Not a crazy stray thought after all. Man. Oh, well, thanks again, Jared. To everyone, our fans, thank you so much for listening, as always. FloridaFocusPodcast.com. If you would like to be on the show, just like Jared was today, become a Patreon, patreon.com/FloridaFocusPodcast. Jared, thank you so much for your time and your insight.
Anytime, guys. You guys know that it's always a pleasure to be on your show. I love what you guys do. I think you have some of the best coverage of the state of Florida around. So I just, you guys keep doing what you're doing.
All right. That's because of reporters like you. Yeah, appreciate that. Anything else, Chris, before we sign off real quick?
No, I'm just, just impressed in how thorough you are. And I'm glad that we know you for many reasons, but I don't have to stress and worry about all this stuff. I can just wait to turn to you. So thank you for taking that load off my shoulders.
I will say, though, Jared, you have made me fall in love with recruiting. This was something that it wasn't always in my wheelhouse. And somebody just one time, not either here, but they're off comment like, well, how can you not follow recruiting? And I'm like, well, you're right. I really should. So I'm getting there, but it's because I'm right on the tailcoats of Jared for sure.
Yeah, I'm the same way. The reason I like recruiting as much as I do is because of you, and our buddy Alan too. But yeah, but I'm glad I have you because I can turn to you during these times.
For any college football fan out there who loves college football but doesn't, maybe is a little intimidated by the world of recruiting, it's college football all year round. So maybe you don't get to watch your schools go head to head on the field, but you get to watch your schools go head to head for some of tomorrow's top talent. And watching those announcements and those signings, man, it's just like it's just like watching a game sometimes. The excitement, the tension. You could be, checking your phone all day for an update to see, who signed who. So, for any of you guys out there who don't follow recruiting or, maybe I'm intimidated to get into it, I encourage you to jump in, check it out, look at your school's, Twitter pages or whatever, or just tune into Florida Focus Podcast for all your updates.
There we go. Love it.
Awesome.
Love it.
Well, real quick, Jared, will you drop your Twitter handle so people want to follow you? They can do so.
Yeah. So it's Double J at Texas Gator 22 on Twitter for you to see me go, head to head with Miami fans and UCF fans all the time.
It's
just it's interesting.
For everybody that's out there doesn't see it, it's hilarious. And it's a sport itself. It's fun stuff.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
We have a good time on there, and any of you guys want to interact, man, feel free to hit the ad or hit the follow or whatever. Just tweet at me. We'll talk some college ball.
There you go. Awesome. Well, this is Brandon saying go Noles.
This is Chris. Go Gators.
Jared.
Go Gators.